item is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to tonight's Planning Commission meeting. Agendas for the meeting are on the table over there. Agendas and minutes are prior meetings are available on the township website. Meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as it may be amended here in a few minutes. Other individuals participating tonight, in addition to the commissioners up here, are Brian Ottman, our planning director, Megan Mason-Minnick from our consultant, Carlisle Wortman, and Helen Moretti from our engineering consultant, Noah and Frost. Belinda, will you take roll call, please?
Yes. Bill Scarborough.
Here.
Joe Sucher.
Here.
Belinda Billings here. Brian Galley.
Here.
Jason Borsheim.
Here.
Ron Ritchie.
Here.
Tom Patel.
Here.
Thank you, we're good. Approval of the agenda is the next item. I have one change. Item F, well, we have two ones, so change the second one to a 2. Minor problem.
Copy paste there.
Yeah, and then it's listed as a final site plan approval. This is a conceptual site plan approval.
Which one?
Number 2
F2.
under F. Everybody got that? Any others? Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item is public comment for items not on the agenda. Again, I need to emphasize this is for items not on the agenda. For items which are on the agenda, the audience will be given the opportunity to comment on those as we get to them. If you have something you would like to say, once I open the public hearing, I ask that you raise your hand. We will recognize you. We ask that you come to the podium here, cite your name and address, and proceed with your comments. We've got a lot on the agenda tonight. We ask that you keep it as brief as you can, and try not to be repetitive of what somebody else has said. We will do the people here first, and after we're done with that, we'll see if anybody online would like to say anything. So having said that, I will call a public comment session to, to order. Does anybody out there wanna? Yes.
Hi, Norm Freschke, 7199 Deer Lake Court. First, I want to thank everybody for volunteering their time and making this township a better place, so thank you, first off. I just want to look back. We don't do this a lot. I don't hear it in the meetings a lot when I listen to it online and see the things, but to do a post-mortem on some of the topics that we've had in the past. This one happens to be that I want to bring up as the Red Barn. That was a few weeks ago. As you know, everybody here voted yes. It was 7-0 as a yes. Then it went to the township, the folks that appointed you and that you are working for, and also the residents. There were 580 signatures on the petition not to do it. And the vote was 6-0, not to do it. I'm just trying to understand the disconnect, how the disconnect can happen be between the Planning Commission and the board on a topic like this. You really need to look back and say, okay, what was that decision about? Why did we vote this way? And why did the township board go 6-0? Those are the things that need to be done to make it better and to make the process and understandable for the residents, that they can have have trust in the committees that are working for them. And I just want to bring that out. I don't know if you want to discuss that point, but for me, it's hard to understand how that happened. And it's something that is a self-reflection for you folks to look at and say, are we really following what the residents and what the board is looking for? And so that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. There has been some talk of a joint meeting between the Township Board and Planning Commission members, and tentatively, I think we're targeting sometime in January. Is that right, Brian? To do that?
January, February.
To accomplish some of the things. And there is a topic on the agenda tonight to kind of take a look back at some other things. So we are attempting to do that. Anybody else? Anybody online have any comments they'd like to say? One more chance, anybody in the audience? Okay, I will close the public hearing. Yes, for public comments on items not on the agenda. The next item is our public hearing for two specific items. The first item is PC file number 2024-014, Khalid Dogger from Dogger Signs. This is a request for a amendment to a planned unit development. They are requesting to do some minor changes to the former town center car wash, as they recently acquired and would like to make some changes. This is a public hearing, so the first thing I think I will do is ask Megan to give a brief explanation of the project for the benefit of the audience. I will then open it to the public for comments, and then we will talk about amongst the commission and the applicant and our consultants about the project. So, Megan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The application is to, as you stated, renovate but also reoccupy the Town Center Auto Wash building on Sashaba Road. It should some note that that subject site was originally part of a planned unit development, and so that's why there's a public hearing, and this body will need to make a determination about whether it's a major or minor amendment. Also of note, it's in the Sashaba Town Center Overlay District, which has specific architectural and design guidelines and standards. What the applicant is proposing is to resurface parts of the east, west, and south elevation in a blue material. They're also proposing to resurface parts of the east elevation in a ribbed steel metal siding. Both of those sidings are a distinctive blue. They're also to resurface the ground side and then blue cladding and ribbed metal siding that's similar to what's proposed on the buildings, adding a wayfinding sign, adding a Planet Car Wash sign on the east and west elevations, and then adding a Planet Oil change sign on the east elevation of the entrance, as well as on the west elevation.
What's that?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I'll open the public comment for comments about this specific project. Anybody out there like to say anything? Online? No one wants to speak? Okay. I will close the public comment session. As Megan said, one of the first things we need to discuss, we may not resolve it, is whether this is a major or minor amendment to the PUD ordinance. If we deem it a major, it's a totally different process. It's my personal feelings that this is a difficult decision. It's my opinion, and that this application so far off the mark from the requirements of our ordinance, that if we were to approve it, it's a major amendment because it so deviates from our PUD requirements in our town center. if it was more in compliance, I feel it would be a minor. So perhaps we need to discuss the details of this before we decide that. So with that, I would ask the applicant, have you read all the consultants, both consultants?
Yes.
Review letters?
Yes, I did read the review letters. My name is Kyle Dagger from Dagger Science. I was involved with Planet Oil from the very first location a few years ago. You know, both as a sign company and designing the identity and even extending to do exterior work like the cladding on the building. There's multiple Planet Oils, and I see that the reviewer pointed out to the one in Roseville. But most of the Planet Oils out there are.
Can you get a little closer to the
Yeah.
mic?
Most of the Planet Oil changes locations in Warren, Dearborn, and Troy are pretty covered with the metal siding and the ACM cladding, except for the Roseville one, which is on a short-term lease, and the owners are waiting for the lease to be renewed and to see how much they could invest in that location. Now, having said that, I would like to point out that what we're proposing is, in my opinion, is just accenting this location with some of the Planet Oil elements. Actually, just back to the other, pointing out to the other oil change locations. I have printed pictures of the other locations if you guys would like to take a look at them. So yeah, I think, in my opinion, we're just trying to accent this building with some Planet Oil element, and this and these elements could be installed rather on the mortar, fastened to the mortar of the building rather to the brick, and they could be removed in the future, with no effect on the design of the building. I did a simple calculation of just the front facade, looking at the front elevation, and I came up to the blue portion of this of what we're proposing is barely about 10% of that elevation. Came out to 9.6%, and that also includes the actual sign that is sitting on the blue ACM. The other items we're proposing, the ground sign, I understand. I think the reviewer has a point that being fully covered is going to remove, is going to take away from the design of that and being more coherent with the building. So for that, we're open to compromise there. Maybe we could just dress up the brick column on the right and remove the metal siding on the bottom. As far as the signs, would you like to discuss the signs, or should we just stick to the building part of the?
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as the signs, I think the reviewer mentioned that 100 square feet is allowed. I think our numbers are at 133 square feet, of which 112 only is facing Sashabau Road, and the other sign, which is the gear logo only, is facing south. And as going back to the ground sign, we're not adding anything to it. We are just refacing and replacing the reader board with an electronic message center. I believe that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Bilal Shami, the owner of Planet Oil Change Centers. Real quick, want to just clarify things. The gentleman or person or woman that made the comments on here said that we would be, in a way, ruining the building by putting this up if it ever were to come off. That's absolutely not true. There would be metal studs that get drilled into the mortar joints, and then the ACM then sits, this metal ACM sits on those metal studs. So if it ever were to come off, you're only having to remortar those small holes that are placed everywhere. We're not doing anything to the brick. The brick is staying there. And like Cal has stated, it's such a small section of the building. I mean, you can drive up and down Sashabau, and I clearly see what you guys are saying, but Starbucks went up a few doors down from us. They have metal elements on the front of their building and on the side of their building. all those newer plazas coming up that you see all have metal elements on their building. This isn't something that we're gonna do to cover the entire building. We wanna keep the integrity of the building. We want the building to stay exactly the same. We are just adding a little bit of metal on the front of the building. That's the only spot that's visible to the road. To the right, a little small corner, and in the rear, a small corner that's not even visible to the road. So, I mean, I personally feel like it's not changing much at all. It's pretty much just our signature sign and our logos going right on top. That's all it is.
Thank you. Megan or Ellen, did you want to add anything?
It was just, in our review, we pointed out there were a number of things that were missing in the site plan in terms of, being able to evaluate whether it complies for landscaping. Some things could be handled just as a simple note that they were not proposing to change any landscaping, but with what we have, we don't know. Also, I think our real problem is that we feel that the proposal with the amount of metal siding that's proposed is not in keeping with the rest of, not in keeping with the Sashaba corridor, and the design guidelines that are there. We feel like the same amount of emphasis should be placed on the building as in with the sign in terms of matching what's required in the ordinance, what the Sashaba guidelines are, and what's existing on the corridor.
Just from an engineering point of view, there's not really a lot of changes being made to the site. Our only concerns were the plans need to show things like the property line, the right-of-way of Sashaba Road, and I believe there's a right-of-way easement as well in this location, just to see how it falls. And also, we'd like to see some dimensions on the plans, and particularly these wayfinding structures where the posts fall. It doesn't really show that type of thing, and the width of those lanes. But they're existing, so it's hard to say how that's gonna be evaluated, and there's also no parking shown on the plans. So that's all we really had. The utilities are all existing, so no changes there.
Commission members? Anybody have any comments?
I have a comment and a question. Question for Mr. Ottman, it's kind of more procedural. So in debating whether this is a minor or major amendment, you know, in my mind, if we're changing traffic patterns, size of building, additions and such, that to me, that's something major. Branding and signs and stuff, to me, is minor. Let's say we deem it a minor amendment and we say, okay, well, some of this stuff is fine, some of it isn't. We'll let you change the sign, we'll let you do this one side, but you can't do the east elevation and you can't do the wayfinding sign. Would that be a process we could go through?
Yeah, first, the minor amendment is, historically, we've handled those as branding changes like this, or a major amendment is really use or change in site plan completely. But this is staying the same use. Sign changes, those are minor amendments, like the Dordt Credit Union, that was essentially rebranding of an old bank, with some slight modification to it. So it's up to the commission how they wanna proceed, but that's how minor amendments versus major, that's the first question really you have to decide.
And if we, like I said, if we do deem it a minor amendment, that's just not a approval that, yeah, you can do all this. We can
No,
make that
absolutely.
smaller.
Absolutely.
The wayfinding sign can't be that high, whatever we deem is
Yeah.
good or bad in it, come to a consensus. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That being said, I'll agree that I think it's a minor PUD change, so minor amendment.
Anybody have any, let's talk about that for a few minutes. Anybody disagree with that?
Well, I would like to say that the plan should be submitted in the right scale. I guess that's the next option. And also need a landscaping plan that's detailed. And as far as the metal siding that's going on to the property, I understand that that's a branding, but the metal to me seems very industrial in look.
Can I interrupt you for a minute? Can we just stay on the, I think those are more detailed questions. Can we stay on the minor versus major for a minute?
I thought we were saying it was minor.
Well, I think, these gentlemen argued that a minor sign changes and rebranding are, when it doesn't entail a change in the use or any change in traffic patterns, things like that, they feel that's minor.
Okay.
So, do you have any feelings on that? I don't want to discount we'll come back to your
Okay.
comments, but, yeah.
We're just saying if you feel it's not a minor change, then it's a whole different process, to go through. It's basically like,
Starting over.
reapproving the PUD, so.
But it is the same use, correct?
Right, that's what we're saying. But we're saying that there are things that affect, the aesthetics, that's kind of some of the comments, right? You could consider some of these major changes because they're violations of the current ordinance. So if we don't come to agreement on what those changes are, then obviously it could be construed as a major, I guess. But right now, we're saying as long as we can come to agreement on the other things we don't like, or, get improvements to what it is, then, we can keep it as a minor change. So if they don't agree to that, then it'll be a major change, and we can go from there. So we're not trying to, I guess, force your hand. We're just trying to explain, I
Okay.
guess, what we're feeling anyway. So.
Do you want to make a motion at this point, or do you want to discuss it further?
I mean, that's fine with me. I guess Mr. Galley explained it pretty well, I think, as long as, I think the motion would be, you can help me out here, but to be that we approve it as a minor change to the PUD, not a major, on the grounds that the aesthetics and sizing of some of the elements can be agreed upon. So.
Is that a motion or an open-ended question?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I'll make it a motion. That's it. You can add to it if you want.
No, I'll second Mr. Ritchie's motion that it, I believe it's a minor amendment, same use.
What does the motion read? I'm not disagreeing with major or minor yet, but I heard some other things that I don't agree with at all.
Just say that we'll agree that it's a minor change to the PUD, as long as an agreement can be made on the open issues of the aesthetics, maybe like the cladding, the sign sizing, the positioning of some of the other elements that, that the consultants and everybody noted in their packet, so.
Okay, so essentially the decision as to whether it's minor or major is gonna have no impact on the ability
To make changes.
to make changes to
Right.
what's being proposed
That's
in
what we're
any
saying.
case.
That's
Yeah.
what we're saying with this, that we're still gonna make changes, or
Right.
able to make changes, even though we're considered a minor amendment.
Right.
Any other discussion on it? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so it's a minor amendment. Now, Belinda, do you want to carry on with
I
your
do.
comments?
If our code says 100 square feet, the sign needs to be scaled down to 100 square feet.
That's the total signage,
Right,
not for each sign.
right. Right-of-way and property lines definitely should be on there. And really, as far as the wayfinding signs, I know the fire department had an issue with that. I personally don't like those. I don't know if you could paint on the asphalt.
It is. It is painted.
It is now.
Then I don't know what the wayfinding signs would help with. I don't like those. Just an opinion.
You done?
Mhm.
Okay. I just pick up on the signs. I count 5 wall signs. The 2 on the peaks, the 2 on the metal, and a logo. It also appears that he's proposing a video in the ground sign. Our ordinance doesn't allow that. And it appears that the electronic message board area of that ground sign exceeds the limit of 25% that we have in our ordinance. So that's, I think, in addition to some of the other things that were in the reviews. Anybody else have comments?
I'll comment on that, Mr. Chair. Just to say that that's one of the items that scares me when people come and propose stuff in their plan. That's a clear violation of our ordinance, like the sign saying they want a video sign when that's strictly not allowable. That we only allow black and white or white on black signs with letters only, no movement or anything else. So, and the size of the sign is 25%. So, for them to even submit this with the things showing over half the sign as being the message board means that they don't understand our regulations and ordinances.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before we leave the sign portion, I agree entirely with Mr. Ritchie's comments. We have ordinances, they're there for a reason, we should stick with them. I see no reason not to.
I'm gonna comment that personally, in my personal experience, is I consider the two wall signs where the business name is on the blue, I consider that entire blue to be part of the sign. I feel that blue is part of their branding, and the entire dimensions of that should be included in the entire sign.
Can I, is it possible that I make a comment? I just want to follow up on some of the items. The wayfinding system that we're proposing, if it's going to be anything that affects, the safety, for a fire truck entering the property, we're trying to just make sure that everybody knows which lane they should stick on to go to the vacuum area, to the oil change, and to the car wash. So we are open to other ideas and maybe to reapply under, for a different type of wayfinding to solve that problem. As far as the monument sign, we're not proposing a video because if I'm not mistaken, I think, videos are not allowed in any message center anywhere in the state, and that's like a traffic hazard. So we're only proposing, slides with still images. We could abide by the township ordinance about still images, and I guess it's not we could limit it to 25% if that's a big issue. And also about the blue, could be an argument could be made that blue is part of the the sign area, or it's part of the identity of these oil changes, but it's not really I wouldn't agree that this is part of the sign area. Any more than the MSU Credit Union having a big green wall as part of their identity, but I'm not sure that was calculated as part of their approved square footage for the sign. About the proposed signs, I don't think we're that far off, but again, we're trying to come and add the Planet Oil identity on this building, where, if that's going to be a big problem, we could go back and stick to the 100 square foot allowed, as a maximum. But I do think that that little bit, if I calculated this correctly, about 9% or 6% or 10% of that facade, the blue area there, that's that really makes a Planet Oil identifiable, and I think it's important for us to have that there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
In terms, I don't have a solution to whether that blue should be part of the sign area or not, but it's also addressed in another part of your comments about the subdued tone of the color, and so if we don't take care of it here, we can take care of it down there and say that's not a subdued tone by any stretch of the imagination, and so it's not permitted.
I agree. I don't need, it's just, I want to state that fact, but regardless of whether it's a piece of wall siding or a piece of the sign, I don't feel it meets our ordinance, so that's the way
Can I say something?
yes.
I mean, I just want to make something clear. I mean, it obviously doesn't meet your ordinance, and that's why we are here. If it met your ordinance, we wouldn't have to be here right now, and this would have been approved and stamped. You guys provide meetings like this for people to come and state the facts. Mr. Ronald did say that he was scared at a point. I want to make it very clear to you, Mr. Ronald, that you shouldn't be very scared. Everything's going to be okay. We actually reached out to Mr. Brian Oppman. We submitted this stuff to him, and there was a little bit of a communication. We actually purchased this facility from a person that works in the city of Independence Township, and I had this conversation with him, and he's the one that directed me to Mr. Brian Oppman, and I made it clear that we wanted to submit for a digital sign. If there was any pushback from him, we would have never did it. He said, there's nothing wrong to submit. We're very easygoing people. If there's something that we can compromise on to where, hey, we can't have this, but we can have this. I mean, we're not trying to make it very difficult on you guys. We're trying to take a 20-year-old building, 15-year-old building, and modernize it. I mean, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, do you guys want the city to stay looking exactly the same? 50 years from now, is it gonna, I mean, everything's gonna get outdated. There needs to be changes made, and we're not saying major changes, but minor changes, meaning when 90% of the building is staying exactly the same and 10% of the building is getting changed. When MSU went to build that bank there, did you guys tell them, no, you can't have that green wall? So if I were to change my blue wall to a green wall, is that gonna be okay? I mean, it's part of our identity. If you guys don't want blue metal, can I put blue stucco there?
Can I interject? It's
Yeah.
part of your identity.
Yeah.
We're trying to have an identity here too.
Absolutely, and that's why we joined this Independence Township, because we want to be part of this community, and we're willing to spend our hard-earned dollars in this community. If we thought that your guys' community wasn't worth it, we would have never came here. So obviously, we like this community, and we want to be part of this community, but you guys got to work with us as well.
No, we don't.
Oh, thank you. I mean,
We're trying.
I know, like, and you don't have to, I mean, instead of saying we appreciate you guys coming in.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion in terms of things that I'm hearing from the Planning Commission and maybe a motion to go forward? So what I'm hearing is that you would like the applicant to resubmit this to bring back to you at a later date. So perhaps a motion to postpone with them having the opportunity to meet, to address the comments from reviewers, for the signs to be revised to meet the zoning ordinance requirements, and then a reduction in the metal cladding as proposed. I think the only other issue, I think all of you have expressed that. The only other issue I was here is that some of you have expressed that the wayfinding sign is not appropriate, and others haven't heard from.
I agree. I mean, the fire marshal has an issue with it, so I think he's got to please the fire marshal in that regard.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question for the applicant. Does that Roseville location have the big blue wall?
Soon will be, yes, sir.
'Cause that
The
looks-
reason why is because when we first took that location, it was on a short-term lease,
Yeah.
and it costs money to do these types of blue walls. So we're actually in the process right now of actually purchasing the location. So we didn't want to start spending money on that location and give the landlord that's there right now kind of, oh, look, they already spent money on the place, so I can hold them in and charge them more. So it was kind of a negotiation tactic on our end, not to spend too much to be able to actually purchase the property. But Roseville does not have any ordinances against this. There's plenty of Wendy's in Roseville that you'll see with red ACM all over the place. There's plenty of Taco Bells in Roseville that you see purple ACM all over the place. You'll see many McDonald's in Roseville that have metal ACM all over the place. So it's not a thing of whether or not Roseville is allowing us to do it. It's more of us in a negotiation tactic on not spending too much money on that property until
Yeah, I
we're
get it.
actually.
I think it looks nice. I think it looks nice without it. So that's
Yeah,
just my
the
opinion to
only problem is with this
committee.
location, I mean, in Roseville, there's stone at the bottom, there's limestone, there's many different characteristics. In this building, it's just a straight red brick building. There's not much character to the building. It just looks so plain and so dull. And if it was me, would I have built it like that from the beginning? No, but we just purchased the place. So we're just trying to make minor adjustments just to modernize it, just to make it look good. And again, we're the easiest people to deal with. You guys say, hey, wayfinding sign, no way, we're not gonna fight it. Take it out, you know? We're very easy people to deal with. We're not difficult. We just wanna modernize the building. We wanna make it look good for the community. We wanna be here for a long time. We wanna employ the people of the community. That's who we do employ.
Okay,
We're,
thank you, thank you. Would
Yes.
somebody like to make a motion?
I guess just comment
Yes.
to Megan. You know, your proposal, you know, suggestion as to how to proceed, you know, could that be like tailored with resubmitting with the components that you mentioned and just making a statement that we want the plans to, you know, to conform to all of our ordinances, period?
Yeah, you need to give them some direction.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that
Well,
could be
I
part of a
think,
motion to
you know,
postpone,
My
yes.
direction would be just conform with the ordinances. We spend a lot of money on master plans, ordinance development, a lot of people put money on it. That's what they want this community to look like, to be, so the petitioners should propose things that are within the ordinance. I mean, that's my thought.
I have a comment also.
Belinda?
I appreciate you bringing your business to Independence Township. I'd rather see a viable business there than a vacant building. So I appreciate that. And I get it that this color is your logo and you want to be recognized for your logo. I'm just thinking if you had less metal clad and less blue, it would be more favorable.
Can I say something? How about, I mean, again, I keep saying this, we're very easy to deal with. What about if we were to remove the blue cladding and maybe
But-
make it
Can I interrupt? We're not gonna negotiate with you here. This is not the
I
time
know,
and
but
place to
just
do
so I know
that.
how to move forward, okay? That way when we do come back, it's easier. If you give me a clear am I gonna have a clear direction from you outside of here? No, so I'm asking you a
No.
quick question. Can I ask you a quick question?
You're gonna get a clear
Okay,
direction to
and
meet our
if-
ordinance.
Okay, if I remove the
Okay.
blue cladding and maybe put like a silver cladding there, something that blends more in, is that fine?
I would say that we will give it consideration.
Okay. And Mr. Bill, I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you taking your time to listen to all this. But when people that are opening businesses in this community, you know, just being a little bit more friendly to people will go a long way. I understand you have to be strict. Believe me, I get it. But a smile, thank you, no problem. But it's against the ordinance, but not everything is just shutting people out right away.
Okay.
Just a little bit more friendlier, please, for the love of God, you know? The
Thank
world's
you.
a terrible place right now, and we just want to make it a little bit better to be able to communicate to each other.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Mostly for Brian. Just for, you know, Megan, your report here, I assume that they have copies of that, so they know what the issues are. So that is direction, right? Okay.
I will make a motion that we postpone the request for petitioner 2024-014 to allow the time to, for the applicant to resubmit a new application, a revised application that complies with our various ordinances, including meeting our sign ordinance, as well as the requirements of the town center and some of the design standards, most of which are mentioned in our various consultants' review letters. Is that good enough, Brian?
Should you include the fire marshal's report as well?
I will amend it to also include the consultant's review letters and the fire marshal's letter.
I support that. Okay, just comment on it?
Yeah.
I didn't talk to Robert's Rules before I got here. Maybe Mr. Galley could comment on this, or Richie with more experience. If we postpone, do you normally postpone and leave it open-ended, or you postpone to a specific date and,
Yeah.
or table
Answer that.
I
to,
think it's table.
table to?
If you table it, they have to come back next month. If you postpone, it's open-ended. That's,
I thought it was just the opposite.
no,
No? Okay.
no.
Any other discussion on the motion?
Just
Linda,
make one comment about the blue, I guess. In my mind, looking at it, maybe they could have a backing to the sign, that's the blue, like you said, and I agree with you that part of all that blue is part of the sign. So maybe, you know, if they've got, say, 6x9 area of blue with a sign on the face of that blue, then, you know,
Like a frame, is that what you're saying?
you know, or a backing type thing, so it gives you a little accent of the blue without, you know, the major corner of the whole thing, something like that, I guess. I could be more open to if they wanna keep the blue
Sure,
in general, so.
thank you. Belinda, we take roll?
Bill Scarborough,
Yeah, yes.
Joe Sucher,
Yes.
Belinda Billings, yes. Brian Galley,
Yes.
Jason Borsheim,
Yes.
Ron Ritchie,
Yes.
Tom Patel.
Yes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is PC file 2024-006, Nicholas Shango. This is a request for a special land use and a amended conceptual site plan approval for the White Lake Commons Shopping Center. And again, this is a public hearing, so for the benefit of our audience, I will ask Megan to give a brief description.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So most people are familiar with White Lake Commons Shopping Center. It's been around since the 1980s. And the applicant is proposing to take the old Frank's portion, reoccupy the indoor space, and then kind of fill the hole that is in the inline shopping center where Frank's had outdoor shopping area. Also, they're proposing 2 outlots with drive-through facilities in 2 multi-tenant buildings. You looked at this, you had held a public hearing on this special land use at your May 9th Planning Commission meeting and postponed it to give the applicant time to resubmit their plan. Some highlights in terms of what they've done in that resubmittal is the parking figures have been updated, a parking study has been submitted. In the White Lake Road access, that has essentially a lamb chop's been placed there for right in, right out only. That was something that you discussed and had come up in the public hearing at that time. They showed existing striped pedestrian crossings and ramps from the former Frank's Nursery to the parking lot. They reconfigured how the drive-throughs flow, and also added more landscaping and a median in between those two drive. One now is the drive for the site. The drive-through lane, and the other is the access for the other building. Also additional landscaping is proposed around the buildings and also along the southeast property line to augment that buffer. And also, as you'll note on the site plan that's shown, the dumpsters have been moved from the side of those parking lots to, for lack of a better word, a gang of dumpsters in the middle of the parking lot there, with arborvitae screening them and some more parking lot islands around buffering them. Also, it's hard to see, but a loading space is proposed just north of that dumpster location that is proposed to serve both of the 2 outlot buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing for comments from the audience. Anybody out there would like to comment on this project? A quiet audience. Anybody online? I see one.
Oh.
Come on up.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Stacy Walker. I live in Northcrest Manors, which is just adjacent to the plaza. I was here at the May meeting, and we've talked with Nicholas a couple times. I'm the president of the Association for Northcrest Manor. We're just interested in knowing a little bit more about what the occupancy might be for those buildings, if that's available at this point.
After the public hearing, I will let the applicant comment on that.
Okay.
I do want to say, as a planning commission and planning, we don't really control occupants, we control use. So just to make sure you're aware of that. So if
Okay.
he tells us one thing and it changes, not a lot we can do about it.
Okay. So I think I'd asked this, I'd called the township and asked a couple questions, and I believe, just for an example, like the selling of marijuana or any kind of cannabis is not permitted, I believe, in the
Nope.
township, so that's not an issue, but that kind of was what was running through our heads, what kind of situation we would have in the plaza, similar to the gas station situation down by 75, so that's why we asked. So, okay, I appreciate your time.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
One of the concerns I have is the road agreement for your road that comes out to White Lake. And my understanding is that's on his property, and there's some form of agreement that allows you folks to use it. Are you happy with the language of that agreement? Does it elaborate on appropriate cost sharing and all that stuff?
At this point, I think we do need to have a little bit more discussion with that. So if we're talking specifically about our entrance, not the lamb chop version of what you're talking about,
Yes.
the right-of-way, correct? We've been to these meetings in the past when the seniors center was developed, and there was a request to put a turnaround that would, the egress would come into our road, and we were opposed to that. We do know that we have attendant shared responsibility of that road, and honestly, I need to read through that detail better to really speak to it. We're not opposed to continuing with that use necessarily, but we have had problems with semi-trucks damaging our center island. It's not really wide and conducive for the semis, so they break the curbs. We've replaced those. Last winter, the boulders got pushed right in. It moved our landscape and our sign, and luckily it didn't damage the sign, but we don't know who did it, but we had to spend money on that. So we've talked with Nicholas about that, and we have good open communication at this point. But I think we need to have a little bit more discussion on how that whole area would work. Because I know there's another situation tabled where they are looking to do some either commercial or residential homes in a section which is not it's not on the table right now, but will become more of our interest at that point if it comes to that. That's a C-section, or I'm sorry, C-section, C2 designation for some
Okay.
property.
I appreciate the fact that the applicant has been talking to you about this, but I'm also more concerned that that language is actually reduced to writing, that he is obligated, that there is appropriate language on who controls the maintenance of that road and appropriate documentation on how the cost is shared.
Ron, would you like to, so Ron is also on our board, and Pendle, and he's been on the board in previous years dealing with that road, previous to my entering the board, so he can probably speak a little bit clearer to those points. Thank you.
My name is Ron Pendle. I live at 5598 Northcrest Village Drive. The road actually that goes to White Lake Road behind the shopping center that exits onto White Lake, we actually own that part of that road from White Lake up to where it curves into the shopping center or into our continuation of Northcrest Crossing. We have a shared maintenance agreement on that road. Part of it, we maintain the majority of it. The shopping center is responsible for a smaller portion, but we have a shared maintenance agreement on that. And the portion that Mr. Schenko, is it, that owns is actually an easement that's given to us to have the easement back into our association. So that's the easement that's owned by the the shopping center. And we have an easement on that. I have the write-up on that easement and the shared maintenance agreements, if anyone would like to see it.
Okay,
I don't have it currently with me, but I mean, we can get it to you if need be.
okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to comment on this project?
I have one other question. You mentioned that you don't have occupancy control, but use control. You mentioned that you have that control. So what is the proposed usage of those buildings? Obviously, it's not, I mean, if they have drive-throughs, so they could be a bank or a credit union, or could be a number of different things. Is there proposed usage that might compete with, say, Neiman's that's right
Well,
there?
just, again, I'll let Mr. Shango address that, but use is like just commercial.
Yeah.
That covers a broad range of uses.
So would that have a time frame involved in it? Could it be an all-night place, so we have light?
There's other ordinances that control operating hours and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Brian?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience? Somebody online that would like to speak? No, where'd they go, Brian?
Ray, unmute yourself.
Well,
There you go.
There you go.
okay, hello. So I guess my point.
Name
my
and
comment-
address, please.
Yes, my name is Ray Llewellyn, and my address is 9254 Pine Knot Road, Clarkston, Michigan, 48348.
Thank you.
Thank you, and my comments are this, personally, I find that shopping center, that whole area is already pretty highly trafficked and pretty highly congested. So if you're gonna put two drive-throughs of any type of business, it's just gonna add more traffic and congestion to that intersection and that area, attempting to get out onto Dixie or get in from Dixie, in the same way with White Lake. I think that there's enough in that shopping center. I'm not the owner, but that's my take on the property. Thank you very much. And to the planning commission, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Anybody else online? Okay, nobody in the audience. I'll close the public hearing. Thank you. Mr. Shango, would you like to talk about who you've got lined up?
Nick Shango. I'll just use one of the addresses, 7117 Dixie Highway. Any questions?
Do you have anybody tentatively lined up? that you can
Yeah, I mean,
announce?
I can't say, but to reassure my neighbors and online, we bring good tenants to the center. We don't deal with the marijuana. There's a last name that does that, but that's not associated to us. But we do commercial real estate. We're in the gas station business. We're in the UPS business. We're in the Anytime Fitness business. We were in the Dunkin' and Baskin business. So we're very versed in drive-through restaurant, retail operations. We're also in the juice business. We have a store called Clean Juice, but I have national tenants lined up. I just need site plan approval.
Can you talk about the type of use? Is it a restaurant? Is it a dry
They're
cleaner?
gonna be, it's gonna mostly be food. When you're in outlets, those are usually, national tenants that wanna be in the area. A credit union was one of them, and, again, if I say, I don't wanna lose ground game, when I get the approval, I'll be happy to share with Brian. I'm not,
Sure.
yeah. But,
Okay.
then the idea with the Frank's Nursery area is, that's gonna be some junior big box or big box. We're gonna split that up. So we have a large portfolio. We have 4 or 5 centers of this magnitude, and we have some good national tenants that'll serve the community well, particularly my neighbors. But we have the right combination for Tennessee, and we can disclose our other centers. If people want more information, you could see my architecture and our portfolio, who we have in our centers.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
As I said at the beginning, this is a special land use and a preliminary conceptual site plan approval. I think the first thing that needs to be addressed is, does this meet the various requirements outlined in the ordinance for approval of special land use? So I would suggest that some of the site plan issues don't necessarily relate to that, some of them do. I would suggest that we talk about those issues that relate to the special land use aspect. Do those various site plan aspects mitigate the issues of special land use caused by the special land use, or do they not? And with that in mind, I would ask Megan perhaps if she might elaborate on some of the issues that are relating to special land use that are brought about as a result of the applicants.
In terms of the standards for special land use, there were a few things that we flagged in terms of looking at whether they match those standards. And we really want to note that the current owners have taken a proactive approach, and the center has the highest occupancy in years. But we have some specific issues related to parking and traffic circulation. One of the issues that's come up during the review of this is whether there's sufficient parking. The applicant submitted a parking study, which showed that they, at peak, had around 600. So at peak, that parking demand would range from 573 to 638 spaces. We had a bit of a back and forth of whether they have 739 spaces there or whether there's 819. But if you go from what's required to what they have in the plan, there's a significant shortage. However, that parking study, which used good data in order to get to that information, they used things from the International Transportation Engineers, but also observations on the ground of the center during different times. Then we feel like that is the study gives proof that this wouldn't be underparked at any time with what's proposed. We flagged it, and I think also the engineer has flagged some concerns about the circulation of the drive-throughs, specifically conflicts with parking backing up and whatnot. And so those are health safety issues that are things that's part of the standards of special land use. So I think from our perspective, the main thing that would need to be rectified in terms of giving a special land use is whether those parking areas can be configured, not the parking, but the parking and the drive-throughs and the pedestrian circulation, all in combination, can be designed in a way that everybody's safe. Whether they're walking, whether they're working there, whether they're taking the trash to the dumpster locations, whether they're walking from the outlot buildings to the inland shopping center. To us, that's the major issue in terms of looking at the special land use and does it meet those standards.
And it's your opinion that the current layout still leaves some of those issues?
Yes, it's our opinion that some of those leave some issues. We've had some site plan recommendations in our review, which we feel that if the special land use was granted, you could then we could work out the design.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sucher.
Just to clarify something, it said that the parking study was done by looking at, I guess, parking during peak times. Okay, now, peak times, when you don't have all the buildings on site, and when some of them are empty,
Yeah.
aren't very peak.
No, can I
Yeah, so I
add,
just-
so what they did is they looked at those peak times, and then for the buildings that were either vacant, or the uses that were proposed in the two outlet buildings, they used parking demand figures from the International Transportation Engineers, and added those in. So that's one of the reasons, if they hadn't done that, we wouldn't recommend that that parking study verifies that it represented what the total parking would be at peak for everything being occupied.
Okay, more or less.
More or less.
Ellen, do you have anything you want to add?
Most of our comments were also with the current layout. Their angled parking wasn't the proper dimensions and was also provided on an aisle that had two-way traffic, which isn't really recommended. Usually when you have the angled parking, you want a single direction on that aisle. So we recommended that that gets converted to 90-degree parking. Their area with the dumpsters is blocking off two existing drive aisles, and so people that are parking up those aisles would need to turn around. So we also recommended that they somehow make those aisles go through, which would also reduce parking to do that. So, and then the other issue was the loading area. They have to cross the aisle, and there didn't seem to be a direct route to take things from the loading area to the buildings, because it went through the drive-through aisles and through other parking, and it just, the layout was mostly the issue. That's really about it. The utilities and everything else will sort of come up more when it goes to final site plan.
Mr. Chair, I got a question on.
You done?
Yeah, will the road improvements, contemplated starting in 2025 have any impact on anything that you've talked about so far? In terms of mitigating it, making it worse, anything?
I don't think they're gonna change the layout of this area, like
No,
the
I'm just
circulation
talking
in
about
that
the
area.
traffic,
It
will-
probably will improve traffic on White Lake.
White Lake.
Yeah, but,
What-
there's
which
also
could
the
be a help.
entrances off Dixie
The
there as
traffic
well.
flow? No?
Pardon?
Which could be a help for the traffic flow within the,
I'm sure it would be, yeah, but I'm not
Okay.
really versed on what exactly they're doing, so.
yeah, okay.
I don't know what's gonna happen.
Just a question.
Yeah, so double left-hand turn lane, at White Lake to head northbound on Dixie. That's the proposed change. So, and I think the right in, right out is a big part of helping to mitigate accidents at that entrance. It seems like we've had many accidents there. And part of the intersection realignment is to help eliminate the blindness, cause it's not quite a square, it's not quite straight on, it's got a little kink to it, so it's hard to, if you're on White Lake Road, making a left to go southbound on Dixie, on the other side. So, this is all an attempt to straighten it out and alleviate some of the turn lane traffic.
Yeah.
Joe said starting in 2025, the
think it's
story I heard
26.
was 26.
Yeah,
Is it 26? Oh.
yeah, we're still working on designs right
Oh,
now.
okay.
Other comments from the commission?
I do have a
Yeah.
question. It looks like there's nine dumpsters, but there's 12 tenant buildings, is that right?
So I tried to, that's correct. I tried to reduce the dumpsters for Dick. The idea is, most of these guys that have restaurants, they have their grease. So, that's kinda on the light side to have 9. I like to have, to be honest with you, I like to have 12 and each guy have 10 feet, but it just didn't work with the flow. So we're trying to combine the loading area and seclude that dumpster area, make it tall, I like to stay above 6 feet. In this type of situation, I like to go 8 feet, so if they have the dumpster lit up, you don't see it. And then green giant arborvitae surrounding the whole thing. We have another property that's very similar to this design. That's how I came up with it. But their dumpsters are split into two. It's a little bit longer, but the idea is the same. We also moved the buildings about 20 feet east of each other. You know, I pushed that building to the east 20 feet more to the side. You also run into REA restrictions. So like a CVS left, but I want to point out, we only have 10,000 square feet of vacancy. The parking study took that into account.
Yeah.
She had called me, and she accounted for that being full, and she accounted for the two new buildings being completely filled and the Frank's Nursery being filled. So they took all that into account, and we achieved 80% of the 100%. So we're actually we have a cushion of 20% for parking according to the study. But yeah, it's I've been playing with that, but I'm open to working with Brian and Dick on that. I mean, we're just trying to make it a cleaner flow around the buildings, because before I had them on the side, and I changed them. I moved this, and you kind of hide it this way too. It's more hidden, putting it in the middle. But you just, I'm sorry, to answer your question, I went on to a weave. You need it, trust me. I'm in the food business. You need it. Most of them, almost all of them that have grease, they need two. They need a grease and they need a dumpster. And if you don't do that, garbage starts falling all over the ground, and
Right.
they start sharing dumpsters. You don't want to do that. The other thing is, it's potentially 12. Some of those are going to become 4. You know, some guys want double space. We just show it like that for marketing. Like if somebody wants 40 feet instead of 20 feet, that becomes 1 space. So that becomes 1 tenant.
No, but actually, what I was thinking was, I'm surprised that there wasn't 12. If there's 12 spots, they should have their own dumpsters. And then you start talking about food, and I thought, well, there's a lot of garbage, a lot of trash generated, so, yeah.
I agree with you, yeah.
My thought would be, maybe we should consider something bigger.
Well, I think some of the concern is just the general location of those dumpsters, as well as the fact that the trucks that would be coming to service those dumpsters would be backing in and out of that lane there. So I think there may be some discussions about trying to rework that in a different way. Am I correct about that, Megan?
Yes, yes. I think those are site plan issues that can be worked out. I
Megan,
think-
I'm sorry, if I may, I put it there because where I had them before, the truck would back up into the stacking area. This is kind of to me, this is a better flow. You know, I'm just from the sense of how the cars stack and leave, there's no obstruction. If there's either there, or you put them on the side, or you put them towards the street. We don't want them towards the street. On the side, the truck, it needs a 30-foot clearance. It's gonna come in, back out, leave. That's gonna cause problems, right? So this is kind of out of the way. And like I said, I'll send Brian and Dick. I have a site that I did this. I got a big concrete pad. It's a big cavity like I did here, and then now the truck can come, pull out, and not disrupt anything. That little part where it would disrupt, there's no traffic there anyways. You're either going this way or going that way, and that middle part is kind of just like for the two outlets. But I'm open to moving around. That's fine with me.
Other members? Belinda?
I would just like to say, I think first, infrastructure should come first, and that is the traffic along White Lake and Dixie, which should be corrected next year, 2025, and then density second. So I don't know if you would consider building out what you've already got there, the Frank's Nursery, and re-tenanting your Century 21. To me, it would make more sense to do it that way, and then come in with another phase after the traffic problem is solved.
The issue with that is, when I do the Frank's Nursery part, that is very cost heavy. It's millions of dollars. The outlots actually help us recuperate our investment. When you get the big box guys, there's all the little restaurants and nationals come out front. That's how you pay your bills. Those are expensive build outs. And the minimum size of those guys are 10,000, some of them are 20,000. So I have 20,000 back there. It could be 2 to 3 a large, we call them junior, and they're gonna come in and say, hey, give me a facelift here. So each one of them is gonna have its own facade that doesn't match the center, because that's how they operate. So the outlets, it's gotta be all done together. You bring power, you bring water, you do it all at one time. If if it makes you feel better, we agreed to take out the White Lake entrance. That was a big thing for us to agree to, because now you can't leave left. So now any traffic that was coming from there is gone, and it can only come from one way when we have a two-way street. So we agreed it was a nuisance. We'd be happy to do that. And that forces everybody to stay kind of in the outskirts anyways. If you really follow the flow, they got to come from Dixie, come like this, and go out. Now, not too many people are going to go to the light, come like this, go through the center, come back out, make a left again. Only the neighborhood has that shortcut to go through the back alley. Everybody else is not going to know that unless you live there. So I think it's more for traffic going that way on Dixie, right? They're in, they're out, and then they go that way. Not so much come in, make a turn, leave left again, and go back out towards the freeway. That's kind of not your traffic pattern there.
Other comments, please?
Oh, and I'm sorry, also, that the Century 21, the difficulty there, I told Brian I want to lower the berm there to get a little more visibility to the center and help lease that spot. That's a tough one to lease, because you kind of see the top of the building. We want to lower the berm. That's part of the project too. I want to kind of just get it all, lower that down about 6-7 feet, safely, properly, put a railing there, and it's going to be you can kind of see the center now, and that'll help us lease out the Century 21. But it's an obsolete building, and it's kind of a case study for a situation like this. Nobody wants it. It's too short. It doesn't have drive-through. It's hard to lease it, and offices are not. Nobody's really wanting it. You know what I mean? It's a big building, so but we'll figure it out when you get traffic when you get users for the outlots and for the back. That'll fill naturally.
You brought it up, the lowering of the berm. It doesn't sit well with me, but I'm willing to listen to what you propose.
And he also wrote no proposed work in the existing landscaping areas, so
Yeah,
that's on his documents,
so,
that he isn't gonna do any work in those areas, so.
Well, the areas that are already done, we're not. I mean, they're already nice.
no. I might disagree with you on that.
I get some comments, I guess.
Yes.
I'll go next if you want. I guess I still look at these two outlot buildings, and in no way and shape, form, in my mind, does both of these warrant a drive-through. And I still think, the 6 in each one of these things, to me, we'd be better off with one building, maybe 1.5 times the size, not with these two buildings. Because to me, only one drive-through works for this section. It's causing all kinds of other traffic issues and everything else. And like we talked about the dumpsters, there's no good pedestrian way for the people coming from these units to take the trash out to the dumpsters. They're going across parking spaces, they're going across the road. So there's no clear walk area for those people to address taking the garbage out. And like Jason already pointed out, there's not even enough for each one of your units. So to me, if we had less units, it'd be easier to have enough dumpsters for each one. So to me, in my mind, this whole thing it says it's like 16,500. It needs to be like 9,000 square feet or less as one building.
I share those concerns. I think I think the concept of two drive-throughs this close together is creating a lot of issues. And just to elaborate a little bit more, one of my concerns is I don't see a whole lot of pedestrian access points or paths going from this part of the development to the inline center. I don't see anything like that, and I think part of that problem is created by the traffic patterns. That's not the only problem it's creating, but that's an example.
Some of the positives, I like the landscape, the additional landscape in the island or the berm. So to me, we could keep more of that there. And I think if we only had one building, there might be areas you could have more greenscape around the buildings. And the outdoor seating, I think, would be more enhanced if there was only one building as well. You could have a better patio areas, and without having to cut across, the drive-through lanes to get there. So
Yeah, I agree.
I just think the two buildings don't work there. That, and I guess I'm not, and I understand that everybody wants to have a drive-through in their building, you know, and that's why, to me, that's the whole reason why he's got two buildings on here, because he can get two drive-throughs. And I just don't think it works, and I just think, the most it should be is one building there. And I guess I'm in favor of making that building a little bit bigger than either one of these, but, to me, it's a whole different layout than what they have drawn, so.
You mentioned the seating areas. I'd like to see those moved up to the front.
Well, that's what I was saying, I think with one building, you could have more options to
Yeah.
have that and have more greenscape as well around the building, so.
Anybody else? Tom?
Look, and that was my question for you. I thought it's probably economically unfeasible to just fix up Frank's, and you're probably doing too, because we have all the equipment there. But I just keep thinking, if you go 5 miles north on Dixie Highway in Holly, that whole center is empty. And I just would hate to see that happen here, so I kind of agree with, at first I thought, well, maybe just build one of them, but those are my thoughts.
Okay. I'm sorry, sir, public comments closed.
Just want to see the plan, it'd be nice to see the plan on the board, so we know what you're.
Can you put it up there, Brian?
Yeah.
Does anybody disagree with anything that thinks this pattern, drive-through pattern needs to be reworked?
I agree.
I agree with Megan that there needs to be a defined walking path for pedestrians
Okay.
to get from one side to the other.
Mr. Shango, are you willing to continue to work with our planning director and our consultants to try and,
Oh, I've been doing it all along.
yeah,
It's my pleasure. Just a couple of things. Again, I'm not trying to be smarter than anybody. In retail, without the end cap drive-through, I have no value. That's my highest asset. You get that, and then the rest of the building fills. So it's like a puzzle. If I don't get, I already have two users for the end cap, and you're gonna love them. And one is food, and one is not. The other thing, and just while you guys are talking, I could probably rework the whole back of the building there to stuff the dumpster area and kind of make its own island, push that brown area up, the mulched area, push it up, and just create it. I went with this because that's the linear driveway of the shopping center. But we can alter it and change paths. I mean, that's open for discussion, but you can only go so far splitting these apart, because now you're gonna get into parking spaces. And the key with a lot of these national guys, again, I deal with a lot of tenants. I got over 215 tenants in my portfolio. They need parking and they have restrictions. The more I go this way, then I'm gonna lose that end cap where the CVS is. And the more I go this way towards Neiman's, I'm gonna disrupt whatever's coming up there. This is a quiet spot at the front. They studied it. At my peak, I still have a 20% cushion.
But-
So I spent a lot of money on the traffic study. I would like everybody to dive a little deeper into it, but we went through everything. And they went on the prime hours, on the prime days. So it'll tell you, like Friday, Saturday, so, it's very thorough. And if you want, I can do a circulation study, but that's something that Brian and Dick kind of do on their end, but, it's there's kind of only one place for these to go, and it's gotta go there. The reason why I can't do one building, it's not economical for me. It's very, not from for construction purposes, but to recuperate. This is
Please listen to us, though. You're getting a
absolutely,
lot of.
oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm
People
gonna,
we're saying that the two drive-throughs is creating a problem.
I'll try to move them more further apart, and,
Okay.
but, I'll talk to Brian and Dick about it. It's,
Okay.
yeah.
Megan,
Mr.
did you want to say?
Well, Mr. Chair, I feel like there's a a number of design issues that can be talked about and worked out, but I think I would suggest that in order for the applicant to feel confident going forward, perhaps the planning commission can consider a vote on the special land use for, the drive-through in general. So at least that they feel confident that they're able to do that. Right now, he's proposing for two drive-throughs, so the motion could be specific to that. Or it could be specific or maybe that's something that the planning commission doesn't feel comfortable at this point.
One voice, I'm not comfortable because I think the patterns and everything speak to how you mitigate the concerns.
Mhm.
Anybody?
I think what she's getting at too as well is we could approve the special land use for one, and then if the design warrants, could expand it, after. I mean, at least he could move forward knowing he has at least one.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this. We're forgetting, on the other side of that driveway, you have a Wendy's drive-through. What's the difference between 2 or 3? I need the second one, please. But I will work with them and get something that they're satisfied with. Okay?
The Wendy's points out exactly what we're talking about. It's in the little area by itself, so there is not another drive-through right next to it competing with Wendy's, so.
Well, yes, if you funnel the traffic, so if you don't mind, can I send you guys a couple case studies that are exactly like this that I've built before and they've been approved? I actually got 3 drive-throughs on a property. It's in Warren, busy corner, hard corner, 83,000 cars on the Mound Road. Let me send you some so you can see what I've done, how they look, and how they're formatted. But I need 2, please. I need 2.
Send them through Brian,
Sure.
he'll forward them to us.
Absolutely.
Along what Megan was talking about, we've kind of bypassed it a little bit. I'm assuming this is fine. Nobody has a issue on the planning commission with infilling Frank's, I assume.
No,
No,
Okay.
welcome it.
Nobody voiced anything. I just didn't know if anybody made that clear to the petitioner, so thought I'd say something.
I was actually gonna make the comment a little later, but
I beat you.
to me, well, to tie into what you said, not that exact comment. The real carrot on this is getting that Frank's, in my mind, getting the Frank's built out. And my concern is hypothetically, he gets approval for this, the 2 new buildings get put up, and Frank's never gets done. And I was gonna ask the applicant, if he doesn't have to answer me, but I'd like him to consider it, phasing this project, not from an approval point of view, but from defining in your application a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3. And they get done sequentially, so that we have some assurances that Frank's will get done before the 2 new buildings get done. I'd like you to consider that.
I got one better for you. I'm doing them all at the same time. That's how I build, because here's what happens. You gotta get power to there, you gotta do sewer, you have to reroute. There's 3 light poles there, there's 2 catch basins there, they slope down. Once you start tearing up, you're gonna do it all one shot. And I'll do them simultaneously. There's no phase. This is the first phase. The second phase, I'm working on a residential thing in the back there with my buddy. And, but I haven't gotten there yet. I just wanna get this. This is phase 1. These all go at the same time. I'm not phasing them.
I appreciate your intent, but I've learned my lessons the hard way. If you don't document it,
No problem. I'm a builder. This is what I do. I do it for a living. I wouldn't do it any other way. To come back and tear up the site, and then you have to section it off, and the tenants complain. The phone calls come to me, so, to our office. So, there's noise, there's dust, there's a
Okay.
pothole, so.
One last
Joe,
thing from,
hold on,
okay.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, just one last thing for me is, on the sign plan, I guess I'm not, it's kinda like ballooned in there, but, he shows 7 signs on the one face, instead of 6.
They said no to it. Yeah, I went last week. They didn't allow it, cause we took the signage, that's another thing. We're taking the signage off of White Lake, That was another thing that we agreed to, so I asked for them to give it back to me on the pylon. One of the gentlemen suggested that we just build another small sign, and I just left it alone. We haven't revisited that
I
yet.
guess I'm getting at is that this is the other thing about having multiple tenants. You know, you show like 6 tenants in the outlot buildings. The total of those signs cannot exceed our sign ordinance as well. And then you're gonna want, most likely, signs on the east side as well as the west side.
I only want on the building, I don't want on the ground, because they can see them from the street. So the idea behind the sign graphic on one of the pages is to help the rear tenants.
What I'm getting at is that when the more tenants you have, that means the more signs you're gonna have. And the signs are controlled by the total of all the signs. It isn't each one gets
Sure.
50
Yeah.
or 100 square
You-
feet of signs.
You're
So-
absolutely correct.
so that-
You're
that
absolutely correct. I was
your-
asking for that too.
Your
yes.
plans should show proportional sign spacing on
I
it as
did-
well. So.
I did. It's on the elevation sheet. If you go a little further through.
Well, I say that, but in one of the pages, you show 7 signs, and you show 135-foot signs.
Oh, that was for the Franks. So I was showing if it's one big box user, that's your max square footage. But if I have 3 users, I'm gonna do it proportionally. I just wrote it as an
Well, that's what
option.
I'm saying. I just want you to
Yeah.
be aware that
Yeah.
the signage is a total
Mr. Ritchie,
signage. So.
just a thought here is, hearing your discussion with him and your discussion about the 2 drive-throughs earlier and the congestion of that area. You know, you said, okay, you know, have one bigger building or the other building doesn't have a drive-through. What if you made, and I'm just talking out loud here, what if you took 1,000 square feet off of each building? It lowers the traffic count, it lowers the density, gives more room for parking, dumpsters,
Well, it's-
drive-throughs, and you still get an end cap drive-through on each unit. But then each building's smaller, but that could be something you could propose. Or is it the 2 drive-throughs, or is it,
Well, I
how
think it's
it's
just
configured.
congestion. It's just too much in that
so if
space.
each building was 6,500 square feet, 7,000 square feet, and it worked for him,
You'd
and the
show
site
better
worked for
traffic
the
flow.
consultants? Okay, I'm just thinking out of the box.
Joe, you wanted to say something?
Well, I wasn't really clear on if we were gonna go ahead with some preliminary approval, but we're still talking about 2 buildings, and I heard so much opposition to the 2 buildings to get it down to 1, but there's some compromise there too. So I just didn't wanna make some kind of a motion that approved 2 buildings without knowing what they're gonna be, how big they're gonna be, et cetera, what the impact is gonna be on the traffic, et cetera. Because there were concerns and they're not addressed.
Well, I think Mr. Ritchie's suggestion was to give him special land use approval for one drive-through. And then he'd still have to come to us for site plan, and we would have the opportunity then to analyze if it's 1 or 2 buildings, and all the other stuff.
Like I say, he'd have to prove to us that, circulation, all the things we don't like about the 2-building layout now, he'd have to show a design that, satisfies us in those areas.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
So it's not approving 2, it's 1. At the most.
One drive-through.
One, yes, right, 1 drive-through, at the most.
Now, I would like to ask the applicant, is that something he'd be interested in?
I respectfully no, but what I would agree to is give me 2 drive-throughs, and I'll work it out with Dick and Brian, and we'll lay this thing out so that it'll work for everybody. But it doesn't. If I don't have a drive-through at the front, I'm just wasting money.
Okay.
It's very. I just want to. Again, I'm not trying to preach, but we do this for a living. You need the drive-through to bring a certain kind of tenant to accompany that end cap user. Because right now, I have space in the back. Why isn't it at least? I have 10,000 square feet. So these front units, they're more contemporary. They bring a different tenant that wouldn't go in the back. It has a higher ceiling, has a different decor. You have this more contemporary look. So it brings a certain tenant, and that certain tenant brings another tenant. And to anchor the building, nobody goes into an empty building. So I have a situation where I have another plaza where I did an outlet. One of them's completely filled. Nobody wants to go into the other one until the end cap is filled. When the end cap is filled, now they've got foot traffic, they're comfortable going next to them. When you get the 2 end cap drive-throughs, those go right away. I have them already. If I get SPA, I will show Brian who they are. right away,
Is-
and then the other guys line up.
Is there, I think that I'm hearing a consensus, and let me verify that, I don't think we're ready to give a special land use approval for 2 drive-throughs. Anybody
Nope.
disagree with that?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say I'm still open to 2 if they can show us a better site plan. And to me, I just think the size of the buildings and the layout, don't warrant that, so.
Again, as one, I agree with you, I'm open to 2, but I think it's gotta be a better
Right.
workup.
What would your construction schedule be?
Well, I need 60 days funding, and I can start. So I'm trying to start before January, because I can still do footings, but, I just want you to know, I spent a lot of money so far, out of pocket and a lot of time, so, I'm not complaining, I just want you to understand, I've been working with them hand in hand, I've made maybe 3-4 revisions. I want to reassure you, the 2 drive-throughs will not be an issue. If we can space them, we can play with the space. I don't know how far east I can go. I have to look at what that tenant's gonna be and how much parking they require. People need parking in the front, and, so, I'm sure we can work something out. Why don't you give me special land use, and you can give me your contingencies. No, I'm serious, give me the contingencies on the design.
Is there anybody here willing to make a motion to approve special land use
On what basis?
on basis of the application in front of us tonight?
2 buildings?
Or even conditions? But 2 drive-throughs.
No.
I'm sorry, I don't think you're gonna get it tonight. But I think you're
I can
getting,
give you
You're
assurance
gonna
that
lose
we'll
me soon,
consider it.
guys, I'm
we're
telling you.
willing to consider, you continue to try to reconfigure.
I would like to see the Franks be built out. And the Citrus
There is
Green
no
one.
Franks without the 2 outlets.
Okay.
Just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Somebody, please make a motion to postpone, special land use and site plan. Conceptual site plan.
I'll make the motion. You fill it in. Make the motion to postpone the special land use and site plan as presented. Is that, Brian, does that sound good? Megan?
I would suggest you add,
PC file.
give the applicant an opportunity to, address some of the, traffic consideration and objections that have been raised. And resubmit.
Right,
A lot of the
That
others,
w-
keep
yeah.
in mind, a lot of the other stuff's site plan,
yeah,
so,
okay, I mean, I'm going to add that in, no problem, but I just don't have the words that you spewed in English. So, do we need to come up with another motion?
Like, I was gonna say, just to make sure he doesn't go away, with all negatives, it's like, I guess I like the greenery you added and the, that type of stuff, and even the style of the building you show isn't, offensive to me at all, so I guess I can live with, some of the style and aesthetic things that are on there. Just the
Just to be
traffic flow.
clear, you don't have any building in your city that looks like that besides the Crispellis. This is very expensive. The way it looks, the way it's set up, but I'm not gonna, you're gonna lose me soon. This is a long process.
Joe,
And if you push it,
Restate the motion,
to
please.
another month, I'm gonna miss the first quarter of next year. Cause I can't build in January,
Site-
February.
resubmit addressing the traffic, pattern,
Okay,
objections.
Okay, the motion is to postpone the consideration of the special land use, giving time for resubmission and addressing the issues, including but not limited to the traffic concerns that have been raised.
Okay. Second, please.
I'll second.
Belinda, second it. Take a roll, please.
Bill Scarborough,
Yes.
Joe Sucher.
Yes,
Belinda Billings, yes. Brian Galley,
Yes.
Jason Borshon,
Yes.
Ron Ritchie,
Yes.
Tom Patel.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Next item on the agenda is BC file 2018-007 Dennis Miller Express Car Wash. This is a request for a preliminary planned unit development to build a car wash in, right next to the Kroger Shopping Center at Sashabot and Maybe. Just to be clear, this is a preliminary review of a planned unit development. It is our practice that we don't make any formal motions on a preliminary planned unit development review. We review it, we discuss the positives and negatives. They get memorialized in the minutes. The applicant listens to what we have to say, takes it into consideration, and goes back and does whatever changes they feel are necessary and they're willing to make to address any concerns we raise, and then come back to us at a future date. So there is no formal motion, but we will discuss it just as we pretty much would any other project. Megan, would you like to
Sure.
do your thing?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you stated, that what's proposed is a car wash in an area that's zoned C2 and is in the Sashba Town Center Overlay District. In the C2, car wash is not an allowed use, but since it is in the Sashba Town Overlay District, the proposed use and development must be a planned unit development under provisions of Section 902. And that section allows any use authorized by the township zoning ordinance. So a motor vehicle wash establishment is allowed as a special land use in the MS, so it's available for this use. So just want to clarify in case you went to the C2, looked and thought, why are we looking at a car wash? That's the reason. The applicant was at a pre-application, concept plan was presented at a pre-application meeting in August. At that point in time, the building was shown in a different location. It's since been moved in accordance with the Sashaba Overlay District to be lined up with the Tim Hortons to the south. And then, so it will front that maybe access road, also have access from the Kroger Access Drive, and have lighted spaces with vacuum cleaners, and there are stacking ones on the side. Also, the proposed public benefit of this as part of a PUD is that the parcel that is under common ownership that's across the maybe access drive is proposed to be a public park or a public common area. There hasn't been a lot of detail given about that, but that's offered at this time as a public benefit.
I got a question on that.
Joe?
How do we, and this is sort of new for me on this specific issue, how do we determine whether or not that public benefit has any benefits to the township at all?
So that's one of the issues that was raised in our review, and I'm sure it came to your mind, in that if it's not said who maintains it and who owns it, then you're not quite sure what's going to happen with it. I think those are things that you can discuss with the applicant tonight, and if you have specific opinions about what it would need to be in order to warrant a public benefit, that would be something that is ripe for discussion at this time.
Okay, and I don't want to go into detail now, we can later, but just as an example, you said for a park. What if we don't need a park?
Then,
I mean, I'm just saying.
Right,
that-
no.
That's a question that's gonna come up, and then does the Parks and Rec get involved? Because don't they have anything to do with parks?
No, I mean, the details of some kind of open space like this typically gets done during development agreements and the PUD agreement later on down the road of who's gonna maintain it and so forth, but it's perfectly adequate for you to, as a commission, to state ask what the intent of this area is, who plans on maintaining it, at this time, and what's gonna be there, if anything, except just grass. I mean, the Parks and Rec won't won't take this on, no, they wouldn't. I mean, it'd be,
Okay, well,
it'd
that
be
was
some,
just an example.
but, you know,
Yeah.
that's,
It's like,
those are the questions that are still valid for a planning commission. Who would end up maintaining this?
yeah,
You know, is it part of the center common area? Is it, you know, part of this project's landscape crew to handle, or, and then what's gonna be there? You know, what's the intent?
right.
Which is open-ended at this point.
Yeah.
They're also asking for listed deviations that ranges from the use itself to the size of the parcel. This parcel is a little more than 2 acres. The minimum lot size in the zoning district is 5 acres. They have a number of things that we flagged in our letter that are non-compliant. The fire marshal had some comments and the engineer had some comments. So those would be all things to take into mind tonight when you're going over the conceptual review, the preliminary review, excuse me.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I just didn't want to get in the weeds yet. Yet.
Is there a detention pond on that lot that they're,
It's the wetland.
But to be clear, it's not on property, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's adjacent to it.
it's the one that's gonna be donated, or whatever?
It's next to it, yeah.
Okay,
Well,
But it's dry.
don't say donated, we don't know that.
okay, whatever they're gonna
Right.
do.
Yeah,
Just this
correct.
little,
Okay,
that's the cattails there.
okay, it looks like
And
there's
that's
a pond.
cattails.
Okay.
And it's just a.
Okay,
Belinda, did you hear me?
I did.
Okay. Commission members? I will open it up. I have two major issues with this. The park, and as said, we don't know who's gonna own it, who's gonna develop it, and as just a raw piece of land, I'm not convinced there is any benefit. They haven't even proposed sidewalks going from their property, connecting to the sidewalk that surrounds the retention pond. So there's no internal pedestrian plan. My other one is the architectural design of the building. There's just tons of language throughout our PUD ordinance, our town center ordinance, our Sashaba overlay district ordinance that describes about architectural style and maintaining a cohesive and consistent theme. Most of the buildings in this area are of some form of a red brick with an off-white ephes of sorts in various locations throughout them. And I think this style does a disservice to our town center concept. And I don't think, the car wash is not the kind of project that I perceive in a town center. A town center is intended to encourage pedestrian traffic, to be the kind of development that people go to and go to a business and walk from that business to the next business and to the next business, and encourages pedestrian traffic. This is a business where people drive to it, they stay in their car, they get it washed, and they leave in their car. All it does is create more traffic that can be a threat to the pedestrian traffic in the town center. So I have issues. So put that on the table, folks.
I'll just say that a car wash is now not allowed in C2, so that's the most important thing. That proposed community park is of little benefit, I think, to the township. It's probably unbuildable, or else they would have put the car wash up there if they were asking for it. I just don't think we need another car wash within, such a short distance of the one we just, the one that's already existing. But the main thing is, the zoning does not allow for it.
Well, in all fairness, our PUD ordinance does,
Right,
but it's gotta meet conditions.
right.
Right, so it couldn't be built without being a PUD. I mean,
Right.
It has to meet the conditions to be approved as a PUD. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Got the process.
I meant to say something, forgive me. I said I don't see this as the type of project in a town center. I do recognize we have a car wash in our town center, but our town center also talks about transition from less intense uses to more, and the existing car wash is, well, this area is a transition area. The existing car wash is up very close to the Sashabaw, Walden intersection, and I see that as a different situation. Anybody else?
Yeah, I thought that, Brian, can you put up page 9, is it page 90 of the packet? Is that possible?
I do, but my battery died, so.
Oh, sorry.
Wanna borrow one?
Yeah.
It would be helpful for the rest of the folks just to see how this thing looks, but, you know, I drive there all the time, that's the Kroger I use. I kind of feel like it just feels like a strange place for a car wash. Doesn't feel natural. So that's probably a less. What's that?
The elevations?
No, the actual location.
Oh, okay.
Then the elevations also don't keep the same architectural style. So I guess I have two issues there.
Page you wanted 90, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this, just where it shows the picture of the building and what it looks like. There you go.
Oh, that's there. I thought you meant the top down, a map where it's at and location.
2 points. Why does your picture look so much better than mine? The color on your monitor looks better.
Why is yours so blue?
I know, it's blue, it looks, that looks nicer actually than this. I'm looking at 9, yeah, there you go.
Oh, the elevation, yeah.
The elevation,
Yeah.
for the folks in the room that might wanna see it, and then also just the location itself, the physical location of the spot.
It's definitely modern. Here you go.
I can't see it out there.
There you go.
Anybody want it?
Look, I just clicked on it and it turned blue like yours. I don't know. Oh, his is got a big blue tip to the whole thing. When you click on it, it doesn't go off. It doesn't really.
Any other comments from commission members? If not, I'll ask the applicant if they're here, if they'd like to come up and address the commission.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jake Arlett with Mannequin Smith, the engineering designer of this project. Any questions you have, I'm going to answer.
Anybody have any questions for him? You heard our concerns?
So, yeah, we've had a couple meetings with you guys over the last couple of months, multiple different versions of the site plan itself. Speaking to the actual use of the car wash at the time in those meetings, the commissioners seemed very open to this being a car wash and supportive, agreeing this was a good location for a car wash, especially due to the Kroger to the north there. Those two uses generally go well hand in hand because the car wash is generally an impulse purchase. It's not something that people leave to go do. It's something specifically next to a Kroger use like that. They see it, they do both in time, they don't add to the traffic flow of the area. Speaking to the deviations, the 5 acre requirement was one that was brought up at the time. It didn't. We provided a response letter addressing those concerns, I believe, to Brian, right? For the deviations that were brought up.
Did you get a response letter from them?
Yeah, we have a response letter from Engineering and Fire. Specifically, I'm wondering which issues you kind of want to focus in on.
Could you
right
address
now?
what you're gonna do with the part, what your intent with the park is?
Oh, so the park area, so yeah, our initial thoughts with the park area was sort of a dog park area at first, just for passerby traffic if the intent was pedestrians. But due to the kind of lack of residential immediately nearby, at the meeting we had in August, that was deemed to be probably not an effective use or really necessary use for the area. So at the time, we kind of agreed to, we will be the ones developing and likely maintaining that area. We were talking about sort of a community garden, a just general park area. We're very open to suggestions on what can be done with that space. The other community benefit that was brought up at that meeting in August was extending the currently the pedestrian walk from Sashabaw Road over to there's a park area east of that Kroger that the sidewalk, it kind of dead ends at the Kroger property and it doesn't make it all the way to that park area. So part of our project was there's an existing crosswalk that goes from the Kroger to our site, and we were extending the sidewalk on our site eastward to the neighboring property to help complete that pedestrian walk to the park to the east. As for the smaller property to the west there by the pond, we're very open to any suggestions as to what can be done with that. We're willing to take on any development and potentially maintenance for it, but as far as what is deemed a beneficial use.
I'm Craig Van Bremen. I'm the Chief Development Officer for Express Wash Concepts, who's the parent company of Clean Express Auto Wash. So we've developed over 100 car washes now across Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and now in Michigan. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is working with municipalities to make sure that we're giving projects to the community that are in conformance with overlay districts and all of those things. So we don't get to this point unless we work closely with staff to have support to say, yes, your use would be a good use here. So I'm a little bit taken aback by the fact that we're now hearing that this is not a good use here. So that's piece one. Second piece is the dog park in the park was just an idea. We wanted to provide some community benefit. We are open to all ideas about how we can use this to benefit the community, or other ideas that could be a better community use. And as far as the building goes, I mean, you have those elevations there. We have a wide variety of buildings that we build to be in conformance with those overlay districts. We're happy to work with you all to make sure that we're adhering to your red brick standard or whatever the case may be. We just need those guidelines when we actually meet with staff so that we're prepared to come here.
Thank you. Comments from the commission?
Just a comment about the park, I guess. You know, part of changing the PUD is you're supposed to show a public benefit. And you have this piece of property that you say you want to use for your public benefit, but you have no idea what you want to do with it. And I guess that's what we're sitting here. It's like, what are we going to do with it? So, and I think that's the big question. It's like, what public benefit is it to us, you know, to have this open property? It's like if we could develop it into something and know what we're going to do with it, I guess that's part of what you're supposed to bring forward too. So, I guess the planning commission, you know, we're glad to give input on that. But I mean, that's, you know, part of working and being part of the community is finding out what that public benefit would do for our area. So I guess there needs to be a little more action other than say, oh, I got this piece of property, that's my public benefit, just tell us what to do with it. So there, I guess, should have been a little more action on that already, I think, so.
Yeah, but if it goes to final, they could provide detailed plans.
Right.
And include I don't know how you document it, but some form of commitment that they'll maintain it and own it.
Yeah, I guess just inputting on Mr. Ritchie's comments with all the food uses around there and Kroger and the other retail, you know, a few benches, a few picnic tables, you know, a dog area. I mean, to me, those are all good things, but how you mix them together, how you fit them in there is up to a design architect, a landscape architect.
We could tell you it could be an outdoor amphitheater, and, you know, put there, it's like, then you might go, well, I don't know if I wanna do all that or not, but that's what I'm getting at, there needs to be some commitment on what you're willing to do on the property, as the public benefit, so. I mean, it could be, you know, when I say a amphitheater or a community gathering spot or whatever, I mean, it could entail quite a bit of stuff, so. But there needs to be something, done that shows, dramatic benefit for the community in that area.
I think we're happy to continue to work with community and do some more engagement on that front. But if we do that, when we do that, am I hearing that the car wash use, because it is part of the PUD, would be supported as long as we can conform to all the architectural design standards as part of the overlay district?
Mr. Chair, there should have been, like, the subcommittee on this that got it to this point, so, I mean, if whoever was on that, you know, said they were okay with the car wash at that point in time, you know, I guess 6 1/2 does the other as far as trying to withdraw that now, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just piggybacking a little bit on Mr. Ritchie there. You can't build the car wash in the C2 district. In order to do that, you need the PUD.
It already is a PUD, right?
No,
Mm.
No.
It's C2.
Oh, C2 is not part of the original PUD of the
No.
whole thing?
No.
Okay.
No, no, this is a new PUD that's proposed. For the reason for that is that it is because of the proposed car
Right.
wash. Also, anything in that Sashabat overlay often does go this PUD route because of the design guidelines that go along with it.
Right.
Um,
You know, I don't need to get into that.
Yes.
I'm just saying, step one is, in order to do this, you have to have a PUD.
Yes,
Okay. In order to get the PUD, the first step is to propose a benefit to the township, which Mr. Ritchie is very correct in saying, we haven't seen yet. I mean, there's this land, but we're not gonna develop that and tell you what it's gonna be a benefit to the township. You're gonna do that to us, propose a benefit to the township. Otherwise, I don't know how you get the PUD.
I would suggest that in our review, there was one aspect for this vacant land that we proposed. If you look in the aerial photos, you'll see that right on the borderline of that, on the western border of the proposed land, there's an existing pedestrian path. If the sidewalk connections could be made across, the applicant proposed a sidewalk across the northern part of the car wash parcel, but for the open space parcel, there was no pedestrian connection. At a minimum, we felt that that pedestrian connection needed to be made to link that whole pedestrian system. And I think perhaps the thing to think about is what public benefits or what designs could be put forward in order to balance the impact of a vehicular use in this location. And maybe that's the test in terms of what you're looking at for the public benefit. So are there connections with non-motorized pathways? Are there safe ways for people? Perhaps they are proposing one crossing, again from the car wash, but are there other areas where there could be pedestrian connections from the parking lot or striping that's put in? There are other things that could be done in that area, or could there be street trees put on both sides of the maybe road access in order to beautify that and make that look like the town center rather than just an open piece? Because when you are looking at a design, when you're traveling down the street, you experience both sides of the street, not just one.
I think you throw out some good ideas. Yeah.
Okay, but I, you know, am I going down the right road here and looking for this benefit before we approve a PUD? That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yes,
Okay.
but I do want to elaborate. There are, as outlined in their review letter, starting on page 3, there are other conditions to be met for a PUD.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to emphasize, the material benefit's not the only one.
Right. Right.
If I could elaborate, so when we were at that meeting in August discussing the community benefit aspect, when I say turn this into a park, I wasn't just meaning a flat piece of grass. I'm talking, like you mentioned, trees along the edges, probably quite a few picnic tables, benches to benefit, food, that kind of thing. And then also in the updated plans we have here, I'm not sure if the version that you were provided has this, but we do have the sidewalk crossing connecting to that property to the west now as well has been added.
That wasn't part of the plans we reviewed.
Okay, yeah, that has been added at this point.
I think it'd be very nice if you could add a sidewalk out to maybe Road and some of the other stuff. It's just a much better pedestrian, system.
Well, I think another big question that should be defined before it even goes forward is ownership, liability, maintenance, who's gonna do all that? I mean, because,
I think they said they'll do that, but it needs to be reflected in the
yes.
Right.
submission.
And there's some other things, and I don't disagree with any of this, I'm just trying to sort it out a little bit. But the access from that piece of land, you're gonna go across the maybe road access to get, so you're really introducing pedestrian traffic to cross vehicular traffic, to take advantage of this. Is that something we wanna do? I mean, I don't know, I don't have the answer to that, but it's
These
just
are-
not simple.
Yeah, I think if you have the appropriate pedestrian crossings with
Okay.
ramps and markings at the appropriate locations, you can make a safe pedestrian environment. And it's just a matter of doing a good design in the appropriate places.
Okay, well, I mean, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, plus these are not,
Safety is an issue,
Yeah.
and if it's taken care of, it's taken care of, and that's good.
these
But
are,
it can't be forgotten.
yeah, I just wanna point out, these are lower volume roads, and lower speed roads as well.
Not when I go down them.
Oh, well then,
I mean, the other traffic I see, not me.
If you haven't already, I would encourage you to look at our town center design guidelines. They talk about bike racks, bench seating, clock towers, covered areas, brick pavers. A lot of good ideas in there. Again, I think, there's issues. I think everything that we've talked about, as well as some we haven't talked about because they're covered in the review letters that need to be addressed. Does everybody feel that if they can meet, if properly designed, if they can demonstrate a good benefit, is there a possibility that we could consider a car wash here?
All things being met, I would agree with that.
And I expressed my resistance at the beginning. I'm still skeptical, but I'm willing to give it further consideration. Okay?
Mhm.
Okay?
Thank you. Really appreciate the feedback.
Okay.
Thank you.
I apologize, is there, you had closed public discussion on non-agenda items earlier, is there no time for public comment on agenda items?
It's not formal, but you're right, we have, and forgive me, we typically do allow comment on even non-public comment items, so if you'd like to comment, come on up.
So my name's Zach Rowley, I'm with 6380 Sawshabaw Road, landlord over there at the, what was the town's center car wash and quick loop. You guys heard from one of our tenants, an extremely passionate tenant, although I will circle back. They're both wonderfully passionate. They are wonderful to work with, and I think you guys will find that. You don't have to look much further than their customer reviews to find out how easy they are to work with in the long term. But they're going to be passionate in their discussions with you. Respectfully, I would more agree with Mr. Scarborough and a couple other comments from Mr. Apologize, Mr. Schlutter.
Suture. Yeah.
Suture, at the beginning of the comment, have the pleasure of helping develop quick lubes, car washes with people in the state of Michigan and a lot of other areas. you know, and a big fear with us is, you know, we recently joined in. I've known the owners of the car wash since about 2014. They worked with them with my father, and then, you know, recently worked with the new owners. And one of the reasons we're really excited about this area and this community is it has good plans. It has people setting plans for the future. It's got a pretty good vision for where they want to go. People is equally passionate on your guys' side about making sure we maintain the integrity of the community as we do. People passionate about, you know, pushing their businesses forward and growing the community, which is wonderful. You know, and as we talk about these car washes, the one thing here in Clarkston that I'd be really concerned about is watching us kind of go the way of other communities. You know, car wash developments right now are extremely hot. Understand that. There's a lot of people out there doing it. I don't have anything negative to say about the individuals here today. I'm sure they want to run a really nice business as well. But we're really running into a lot of communities that we're in where, you know, the rush to say, hey, can we fill up vacant land turns into a, okay, well, have we filled it with the wrong items in those areas of the community? You know, this board, I believe, looking over the minutes as I kind of prepared to come in here and learn a little bit about this project, you know, only within a few months ago has already approved a very similar development just down the road with the Mr. Car Wash development of the old, I believe that's the old Big Boy property over there. So this community is going to go from having, you know, a couple of very good operators and people in the area to, you know, having a very large, you know, as Mr. Scarborough mentioned, drive through, stay in your vehicle, wash your car as quick as you can, and move on. There's going to be service down there in the southwest corner of the town within, you know, under 2 miles away from this existing facility. And then in an area designated on the pedestrian traffic is to take this piece of property and say, okay, before we even have that property developed, to see what the impact of that is and whether or not that meets the use need of the community, is to dive in and say, okay, well, why don't we pack a couple more, you know, very similar things into the community. Obviously, I'm not totally unbiased in this position because we are over at that location, but in our development in other communities, we're actually seeing this go the other direction, which is, you don't have to look very far. I mean, just over the border in Ohio and Perrysburg, they, you know, watched kind of these same discussions go, put in a moratorium. You've seen town after town put in moratoriums because the benefit to the community hasn't been outweighed by, you know, just filling other properties. Would be more than happy to provide Brian and the team with, you know, a lot of studies that have been done around just saying, hey, have we reached kind of critical mass on this, where all we're doing is potentially creating other issues in other areas of the community. You know, we very strongly feel like the uses here were well defined. Part of joining the community is the, you know, understanding that the plans and everything are not going to be taken lightly, so you have faith investing in the community. And if the boards are going to be able to say, well, we know it shouldn't be permitted, but hey, if we can get a, you know, a little bit of development over here, we're willing to change that. I don't know how people can invest confidently in the community and say, hey, I've invested to be a part of this, as we have since 2014 when that car wash opened and then expanded. I think that was 2017 into the Quick Loop. I might be getting my dates wrong when we worked with them on that project, but if people here in the community are going to have that confidence, they have to know that, hey, it's not just going to be a, well, if we have an exception or somebody wants to do it, we'll throw up as many of any of these types of businesses as we can. So we'd respectfully just ask that that be taken very seriously before we maybe let a first development occur and see whether or not the community is overbuilt in something before we take the time to say, let's do another identical development within a mile of that development. So thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Sorry I did not speak earlier. Didn't realize that was the process.
Okay, next item is approval of regular minutes. Anybody got any changes? If not,
No.
how about a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
All in favor of October 10th?
October 10th.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Megan, Public Act 233.
Okay. Seem to have lost I will find it. Public Act 233, as some of you may be aware, is an act that was passed by the Michigan State Legislature in 2023. What it did was it allowed the Michigan Public Services Commission for renewable energy facilities, so that would be wind, solar, and battery storage over a certain megawatt, to be approved by that state body. The reason we brought it up is that many of your neighboring municipalities are now amending their zoning ordinance in order to deal with that. We wanted to highlight that for you, and also explain why we necessarily hadn't brought it to you earlier. And one of those reasons is that you don't have a lot of vacant land for renewable energy systems of that scale. So it's 50 megawatts for solar or for battery storage, 100 megawatts for wind. So for wind, just so you know, that's probably 500 to 600 acres. For solar, that's probably 400 to 500 acres. And then battery storage is a little different. They tend to site either with a substation or as a hybrid component with another one of these renewable energy land uses. And looking at your community and what vacant land is available, and then where things are, we really felt that you don't have the only possibility of that maybe coming to you is something that's dealing with battery storage. But we wanted to bring you the options that you have in case you wanted to look at them. One is to simply defer to the Michigan Public Services Commission. You could amend your ordinance to say anything that meets these thresholds has to go to the MPSC. If you do that, the municipality is, by that state law, could receive a one-time $2,000 per megawatt payment for the energy provider. So if it's about, you can do the math and see what it was. You can create what's called a compatible renewable energy ordinance, and that's defined in the legislation and has been further clarified by the Michigan Public Services Commission in terms of their rules. And they've really strictly interpreted it, and a number of municipalities have now brought suit against the MSPC based on the rules saying it doesn't match the act. But if you chose to go that route, which some of our clients have, including Oxford Township, that the municipality could receive $5,000 per megawatt or community benefits from the energy provider on a yearly basis. Also, you could create a workable incompatible ordinance where you're saying, we're not gonna abide by state law. We feel like these will come and we wanna have control over how they come. And so then you're forgoing any of the benefit, but also really kind of what you're saying to these developers is that when you come, we're gonna work with you and look to approve one if it meets these parameters. But we're fully recognizing that we are not complying with PA 233, and we're kind of rolling the dice because it may take longer. And the last option is to do nothing. This landscape is really changing. As I said, there's a suit currently by, I believe 75 different municipalities against the MSPC. We suspect that a lot of these things will shake out in the next 6 to 8 months or year. And because you haven't had these renewable energy developers approaching you, and we don't see a natural site for it here, we felt that, that's maybe one of the best options to consider.
Which one?
Do nothing.
Do nothing.
I like that.
Or do nothing now.
Do nothing now.
I think we should
Have
opt
you
out,
done, have
like
you done
marijuana.
any looking
I didn't
at
know that we
the
could.
state,
Probably can't.
the details of their proposals? I mean, these suits are coming
Lithium in your water.
by reason of the state is gonna like shut down nuclear and do this in addition to making these provisions for wind and solar. And the predictions are that in 30-something, we will not have in Michigan enough generating electricity capacity from solar, wind, and the other renewables, you know, which is scary. That's why these suits are coming up one by one by one by one. I don't know if we wanna get involved in that, but it's, I'd say, you know, my view would be, and it's not an official view for the planning commission, is do nothing and let's see what these suits are. I'd just as soon join a suit
I
as
agree.
to protect the township, you know, because this is heading into, you know, a disaster, and we're not even looking at it. Of course, I'll be dead by the time that happens, so it'll be Jason's problem, or maybe Tom's problem, probably not mine.
What, do you think I'm going first?
No. I'm just saying, this is a big issue, and you're right, you know, we need to look at it, and we should probably take some position, I guess, but it isn't simple, it's not simple.
We're not asking you to make a decision tonight, we just wanted to bring this to your attention, let you know what options are, answer any questions that you have. But again, we don't feel like this is a pressing issue because you don't have somebody who's approached you about it. And you're not like some of our other clients, which are mostly agricultural, and have some really prime spots.
Yeah.
Particularly for solar.
Who is it? Is it
My only
Brandon?
request.
Yeah, Groveland or Brandon?
Yeah, the scary part is you can cross municipal boundaries with these sites. That's,
Yeah.
you know, so could we be clipped in some, I mean, this isn't a good community for wind, period, you know, it just
Period.
isn't.
No,
No, I mean, it
between
isn't.
trees.
But, you know, and Oxford Township's more conducive to wind, but they never got any applications like this, when I was involved there for over 10 years, so, but this is something that's pretty scary in the fact that you can cross municipal boundaries, and we have a very rural Brandon north of us that will likely face something like this.
Yeah, and
But for us, it may clip some part near on Oak Hill Road, but
And Brandon is one of our clients, and I'm the principal who works with them, and they're discussing this next Tuesday night, because they're very concerned about the battery storage
yeah.
facility, I believe in Groveland, that has been in the press, and they feel like they would be the next natural place for someone to come.
I believe the
Right
battery,
next to the car batteries.
battery storage ties into the high tension wires, so
Mhm.
as Dick and I have talked about this, that would maybe be a possibility someday, but we just don't know. I mean, how that all would work.
Does, if we do nothing, or if we choose to opt out, does that basically leave us under the control of the state? Let's say somebody came in.
So if they came in by the state law, they have 160 days to reach an agreement with you. And you could adopt an ordinance at that point, and if you were gonna comply with state law, it would have to be a CREO, because otherwise they could say, hey, you didn't. And what happens after those 160 days, the developer has an option where they can continue to work with you, or they can go to Michigan Public Services Commission and say, hey, they didn't do what they were supposed to by the state law, you get to approve it. But the MSPC makes that decision, whether they take it or not. So kind of like a court system, when it's going up and down. So that's a wild card for a developer. Then also, by that state law, and they have up to, MPSC has a year to make a decision. So in the developer's world, a year is a long time. So that's another reason why they would work with you. Also, something that's changed from when this law first came on the books, and everybody in the planning world was looking at it. At first, it wasn't clear if you didn't have a CREO and it went to MSPC and they said, oh no, you didn't abide by it, it seemed like you were one and done. That after that, everything always would go to the state. They clarified in the rules that wasn't the intent. So if something came, it went to the MPSC and was approved, any municipality still has the opportunity to adopt a CREO later in order to have some control. Our clients have had one way or another. Some clients were very happy to defer to the state and let them deal with it. Others wanted that control and have either done a CREO or a workable incompatible ordinance.
Is this, if you adopted an ordinance, is this like what they did on cell towers, where you can't outlaw them, but you can control
Where they go.
where they go.
You can't control where they go.
You
cannot?
can't.
You cannot. And that's one of the things that's being contested in the suits right now.
So what good does it do to have an ordinance?
Or a master plan.
Well, leaving the master plan aside and the wisdom of the state legislature,
Totally aside.
what you can do then is you can have some control over how it's placed and also be able to directly negotiate with things like your fire department and what type of training they need and things like that. That's allowed for under the rules and the state law. And so rather than that going to the MSPC and them negotiating it for you, some people feel like it'd be better to have your first responders in the room helping to define what that training is. But honestly, things that you would probably want some more control over, such as where it's sited, landscaping, decommissioning, those all right now, the way it's been interpreted by the Michigan Public Services Commission and their rules is to say that's set at the state level and you have to abide by that.
What about the what? Is there any control of, we would prefer solar versus wind or, whatever, a tier to, I mean, honestly, what it sounds like is the state's coming and saying, we're gonna do this, so get ready. And now we're kind of left guessing, what does that mean for us? That's how I'm taking it. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong in that the state has decided to take space for regulating a land use that's typically done by zoning at a municipal level.
Right.
And then having a state level agency take it over in certain cases.
Is there precedence for that, for anything else?
There's a number.
Cell towers to a certain extent.
Cell towers to a certain extent. There's a number of state laws which have exempted things such as schools. You don't have any control in terms of site plan review, in terms of what, schools design.
Don't utilities come into play there too?
Utilities, also, again, Right to Farm Act exempts a lot of control that municipalities used to have over agriculture and no longer do. In terms of, it used to be that municipality could say where agriculture with keeping of animals was, as opposed to if you're just raising, food and food, flora rather than fauna. So there are precedents from that, and then also around the country, also there have been similar state laws that have been enacted in Illinois and Minnesota around renewable energy and taking that control away from local municipalities and having it at a state or a higher level.
Now, has there been discussion where a municipality would agree with a neighboring municipality to purchase credits? The neighbor will take on our burden.
No, I'm not aware of anything like that, but I don't know whether the state law would necessarily recognize it. What it says is that these facilities can cross municipal borders, and if one of those municipalities does not have a CREO, then it can go to the MSPC.
But you're saying we really don't have any parcels that would be large enough that they would be interested in?
Unless it's probably a battery storage facility in some way, and you do have some high power tension lines.
Not to pass the buck, but if we have no control over where, doesn't it really become more of an issue for the board than the planning commission?
We could bring this issue to the board as well.
I mean, if it regulates how you train your firefighters, that's not our cup of tea.
But it's part of I think what you're getting at, Meg, is do we want to develop an ordinance? And that's where the planning commission comes in.
Because it would be part of the zoning ordinance.
Would it? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why she's bringing it and talking to us about it, because it's really, do you want to create an ordinance to cover this issue or not? So
Maybe.
Would we want to create an ordinance to cover the issue without the board being involved and giving some guidance as to what they see for the future of the township?
Well, you could do both. I mean, that's part of why you would maybe have a joint meeting to talk about different things as well.
Or the alternative, buying our power from Ohio?
Like say ordinance, create a new ordinance, obviously involves multiple people. But I think that's why Megan's talking about this tonight, is like, one of the steps
No, it's
is you can
interesting.
create an
Yeah, it's
ordinance.
good.
That's what you said, we can create an ordinance, or we can say, we're just not gonna do anything, so. That's what she's asking, do you wanna proceed down this road, or don't you? So,
But are we ready to make that decision? No.
well, that's what she's saying, is,
And you don't have to make that decision now.
To-
Again, we
to-
just wanted to make you aware.
Yeah, I mean, we could have some more discussions, some more information, workshops, whatever, before you made a decision like that, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense, but, there's talk about a joint meeting between us and the board in January. I don't want it to be a major part of the topic, but just to lay it out to the board so they're aware of it and at that meeting.
Maybe we'd have more information by then too.
Possibly.
And I imagine at some point you will be representing some community that actually has, and maybe you already are, and you'll have more experience in this.
Well, our firm has worked with a half dozen communities to draft ordinances or in response to PA 233. I personally have written a workable incompatible ordinance for Dexter Township, and helped in Oxford Township. They intended it to be a CREO. They really were on the ball early and got something passed in, I think, September. And then the MSPC rules came out, and what they thought was a CREO really is a workable incompatible ordinance, because they had decided they wanted to only allow these facilities in their gravel overlay, their extraction overlay, which is almost 1/3 of the township. So it was a large area that they felt was appropriate. So we do have experience we'd be happy to share.
Okay.
That's more helpful, right? I think it's helpful to see what other communities are doing, maybe what works or what they're, it seems like it's new, so maybe there's not a lot of experience with it yet, right? Is that right, or?
That's right, because the law was adopted in November of last year, becomes effective end of November this year.
Okay.
So, in your feeling, do you see similar responses from planning commissions that you've worked with? Have you presented this to the planning commissions?
Yes, I've
Right.
presented it to several planning commissions, and their reactions have been varied.
Okay.
It was either, we want to take action but comply with state law. One in particular felt strongly that they wanted to take the chance on a workable incompatible ordinance, and they actually had 3 meetings on that to get to that decision. But the majority of our clients who have looked at it have decided either on the do-nothing option or simply adopting some language that defers to the Michigan Public Services Commission. And most of the communities who are similar to you, suburban with some open space, but you've got a whole kind of mix of land uses and urban forms or within Independence Township. Those usually have either decided to do nothing or had a specific section that deferred to took any of those land uses and said it goes straight to the MPSC.
Makes sense.
Okay. All set?
Yep.
Okay. Next item, I think is discussion. Everybody got their agenda, am I right?
Yes, I wanted to just mention to the planning commission that the township board, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, referred the PUD ordinance for review, based on some amendments that the open space committee, I think, proposed.
Jerry.
Yes.
Yeah, at that time, and
9.01 or
really it was just, sent down for the planning commission to review the entire ordinance, including the proposed amendments that the open space committee had suggested. So, that'll be coming to you in the next couple months, probably January, because December is gonna be the master plan public hearing, as well as another 1 or 2 projects, so it's gonna be another long meeting. And, so it'll probably be January when it's most appropriate to bring that forward.
Well, I would qualify that, because of the thing I wanna discuss.
Yeah.
So, let me go there and then we'll come back to this. I want the planning commission, I'm asking the planning commission to form a committee, a subcommittee of 3 planning commission members, so I'll be looking for volunteers, and up to 5 citizens. And the purpose is to review past plan developments, PUDs, PRDs, things like that. How far back, however far back it is necessary to get a good sample. And I don't know what that is, because I don't know all the PUDs we've done. Dick is, my understanding, compiling a list. And the idea is to look at the process on each one of them, figure out what we did right or what we did wrong, why we got this over here, but we didn't get it over here, compare notes, and lessons learned, and ultimately, end up with maybe some, hopefully, some amendments to the PUD ordinance. So, I'd like to know if the planning commission likes that idea and is willing to proceed with it, and seek 3 volunteers to sit on it. I would imagine, 1 meeting a month. They won't be public meetings, because we're not decision-making, right, Brian?
Correct.
My thought process is, and this might change, that we would take a project or 2 a month. It depends on how big. If it's a big project that takes a lot to digest, it might be 1. If it's a couple small ones, it might. Look at the agenda packets, study them in the off hours, and then come to a meeting, discuss the good and bad points of them, and reach some conclusions a little bit at a time and keep going. I can't honestly tell you how long it will take. Don't know how many projects we'll have. I guess I would hope maybe 6 months, something like that. But
All this information is back in the history of the township?
yeah, Brian, even if they've fallen off do they fall off the agenda packets off the website eventually?
Yeah, they do, but I have everything scanned planning-wise back to about 95.
So you could provide us links if they're not on the.
Yeah, and, I mean, we've had them batch scanned, so it is a ton of documents that come with these.
Huge file.
And
Oh, yeah, it's a ton, hundreds of pages. You know, especially when you've got a PUD that's complicated, it's gonna be quite lengthy, so.
to keep costs down, it's my intention that we would not hire Carlisle Wortman wholesale, but we may ask them to come in and help us on certain issues or certain projects from time to time.
I certainly should have a list of PUDs, like, you know, with the age of them, you know, like the year
That's
they
what
were
Dick's
started.
compiling right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, that'd be the easiest way to say, hey, let's look at these and
Yep.
get that information, so. I guess just one comment about picking your members, I don't know if you wanna do it tonight or not, because there's potential 3 of us are not gonna be here, so you're gonna have 3 new people as well, so.
Well, I thought about that. My preference obviously would be not to deprive new people of the opportunity, but to have some people with some experience who have some familiarity with the PUD ordinance, because the residents won't have any familiarity. So I was hoping I could get my 3 volunteers out of the people that aren't up for reappointment.
Well, would it be a better idea to wait until we know who all's gonna be on this board?
It would be a lot better, but every time I try to do something, it's getting delayed.
But one of the things, in your favor, in your defense of delay, is we got Thanksgiving coming up, then we got Christmas coming up.
Really?
Well, but
You know,
I hear you, but keep in mind, you know, we're gonna have to pick the residents, we're gonna have to get them on board, we're gonna have to complete this list.
Well, it can
I-
start, the recruitment can start.
Yeah, but it's gonna take time. I mean, I truly foresee it would be maybe January before we even actually start
Yeah,
recruiting.
right. Well,
And like I said, if I can get my volunteers out of, even get 2 of them out of, I wanna be one, obviously, cause it's my baby, but, so I only need 2 of you. Is that a volunteer, Joe?
yeah,
That's Joe.
I'm gonna have lots of time on my hands.
Jason, for sure? Okay. We got our volunteers, thank you. And I would ask all of you, if you have people you know in the township that you think would be interested in being the citizens, send me an email. And, yeah. And, I'll circulate all the names and stuff to everybody, and we'll make a decision as a group, the 3 of us. Okay? Now, to go back to Brian's point. The amendments that Jerry Fisher and the ROG have approved are somewhat minuscule. They are key in that they are inserting certain phrases in certain places in the PUD ordinance to basically emphasize open space protection and stuff like that. Would you agree with that synopsis, Joe?
Oh, yeah, there's probably less than 25 words amended in the whole thing. It's not a big deal. It isn't a big deal.
But-
Matter of fact, I could get copies of it. Well, you
I
must
already
have
read
copies.
it, yeah. I
But the
already read it.
township board was asked to send that document to the planning commission. The township board expanded it. Somebody said, when was the last time we amended a PUD ordinance? And I think Jerry said probably 30, 40 years ago.
When he wrote it.
Yeah, so it probably does need rewritten, but in my thinking, I don't know that it makes sense. I don't know, we can start looking at, I mean, Brian, you know,
Well,
does it
yeah.
make sense to start looking at other aspects, or should we,
Well, maybe this PUD exploration needs to be completed before,
that's my
I
thought.
mean, we start down a road and then switch gears potentially, you know? Cause we don't know what's gonna come out of the committee that you're forming.
Yeah, I don't, Joe, that ends up, if you go that approach, it ends up delaying what,
Yeah, I'm trying to go back and think of it. It had to do with trees, and it had to do with, just when you approve a PUD, to preserve some open space and whatnot. It's very, very minimal. It wasn't adding any paragraphs or sections. It was adding words to existing sentences. But I can't be more specific, because I got brain fade on that issue tonight, so, but it is insignificant. It could have, it's insignificant changes, but it could have an impact, is what I'm saying. You'd have to look at it and see.
I've got it here if anybody wants examples. I can pass it around. The yellow stuff is additional words.
Okay, don't hold me to the 25 words then.
It's close.
So, I don't know, you said that'll be on the agenda in the next couple of months.
Well, we could do that, yeah, I mean, or let's see how the subcommittee goes, and then Bill, you and I can figure out when it comes in front of everybody.
I mean, I guess we could start looking at those specific things and seeing if we wanna include that kind of language in the final, whatever it is.
That's something you and I can discuss
Okay,
offline.
we'll figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
That's it.
Anybody else have, I wanted to report that, the township board, delayed taking any action on sending the, suggested tree ordinance to, the planning, to, Dick Carlisle Wortman for, drafting. So, that's where that stands.
Don't want to spend any money. Sorry, Carl and Wortman, you guys are gonna go bankrupt now, so it's,
If you're curious as to why, watch the video. It's probably, I can't explain it. But I'm not giving up. Okay, anybody got anything else?
Comment on something at tonight's meeting. We had a resident speak, paraphrasing, but the premise of it was, how dare you not do what the township board tells you to do? You guys should talk more. I thought that the township board is supposed to be autonomous people coming to a meeting and discussing things and opening their mind in public. The planning commission is a board that's supposed to come to the planning commission, see all the information, hear the petitioner, hear our consultants, and have an independent mind and vote. And the same thing goes with the ZBA. So that comment just took me off guard. Obviously, not gonna get in a discussion about it in an open mic situation, but that's what we're supposed to be doing, correct?
Yeah.
The township board isn't supposed to corner you in a room and say, vote this way next week. That's against the law, correct?
You're an appointed body for a reason. They appoint you for a certain term, and that term, because you're appointed, that insulates you as a board from public opinion. Whereas township board is directly elected and directly beholden. So it is not unusual for a planning commission to have a different opinion and recommendation than what's the ultimate decision by the township board.
It's unusual, but it happens.
It's unusual, but it happens.
Here, it's very unusual. Very,
Well, and a
very
lot of time it
unusual.
stems from public outcry and
A lot of times it stems from
courage to vote.
public, there's a whole variety of reasons, but again, going back to the structural setup, is you're an appointed body who's charged with certain duties by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act and the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. And that appointment and those duties are very different than what outlined in those state laws, is very different than what the township board's duties are. And so you're supposed to make your decisions based on what's presented before you, fact and law and precedent. And that may be different than what they make their decisions upon. And so just because you have a difference of opinion doesn't mean that you, planning commission, haven't done your job.
Well, and the premise was is you should all talk more and all get on the same page. Well, that's against the law.
In terms of individual cases, yes.
Like I said, I think it worked just like it's supposed to work. It's like the planning commission made its decision and selection, and it went to the board. And that's why, if it did need the board approval step, and it couldn't get denied, why have that step if that's not a possibility? So that's, to me, it worked just like it was supposed to. It's like we made a decision and went to the board. They made their decisions.
Well, and we've had cases like that in the past too, where they've sent it back and say, hey, do more work on this item, but you don't feel it's quite ready, So it goes both ways.
It's a cooperative arrangement.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those things that it took its course, so.
Yeah. My feelings are the same, like you, I just wasn't gonna get into it.
Yeah, no, it's not appropriate to go into a back and forth, I agree. That's it.
Anybody got anything else?
I
If
make a
not, how
motion
about a
we
motion?
adjourn.
Pardon me?
Make a motion we adjourn.
I'm sorry,
Just
I
have
didn't
one
hear you.
comment.
I make a motion we adjourn.
One comment before we
Second.
adjourn.
Oh, one comment.
I go, this is my last meeting, just wanted to say thank you. and-
All right.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
all right.
Thank you for your input.
It may be your last meeting.
12
Maybe.
Good
years.
working with you guys.
12 years sitting next to you.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe you will.
Maybe. As a
We got
township
that?
trustee anyway.
Oh, hey, listen. Just in case
That's
there's a
correct.
phone number, something like that.
Did we adjourn?
Perfect.
Okay.
We didn't vote. Somebody,
No, I just wanted to let-
Belinda, motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, we're adjourned.
Thanks.
I'm sorry I was so quiet.